The message is one of utter hopelessness. Destruction is so complete that life as it's been lived can never be rebuilt.
You see your civilization just destroyed, and not to ever recover again. I mean, that's it, man, you're done.
Faced with intense political lobbying, ABC have watered down the film.
You know, if you say something is pernicious in its effect, then you would prefer that it not be shown. Or perhaps it could be accompanied by another film showing the horrors of living under communism.
Any effort to stop it is censorship of the worst kind.
The interviewees were also given a list of possible scenarios of what could happen in Britain over the next 10 years, including whether they thought a nuclear war was likely.
After seeing that, it's just so frightening to believe that somebody would actually do it. Maybe somebody somewhere, some nut might.
Seeing the film, that I think that it would be best that we hang on to the weapons because, as I said before, other people have got them as well. And if we didn't have them, they'd have more scope to use them on us.
That's the sort of thing it made me think of immediately, watching it. There will be no future.
This is the main street of Lawrence in the Midwest state of Kansas. In the day after, it is Lawrence and all the buildings around me which are shown experiencing the full horrifying effects of Soviet missiles, which are aimed at wiping out United States missiles based as they are in real life just a few miles from here. The message is one of utter hopelessness. Destruction is so complete that life as it's been lived can never be rebuilt. Those in Lawrence and nearby Kansas City who took part or watched the film being made are still stunned by the realization of what a nuclear missile strike would do to their community. Last month, ABC broke the secrecy surrounding the film and put on a special showing in Lawrence. It was what they called an expression of respect to the town the filmmakers had destroyed.
You see your community, you see people that you know, you see your streets, you see your city, and more than that, you see your civilization just destroyed, and not to ever recover again. I mean, that's it, man, you're done.
Bootleg copies of the film have fueled the national controversy over whether it should be shown at all. The National Review is a journal which reflects right-wing views. Like various newspapers and politicians, it accuses ABC of making a political film which reinforces Soviet policy. Without seeing it, they call the film pernicious junk.
You know, if you say something is pernicious in its effect, then you would prefer that it not be shown. Or perhaps it could be accompanied by another film showing the horrors of living under communism. I think it's designed to create hysteria.
Unlike Mr. Sobran, anti-nuclear groups like Ground Zero say the day after must be shown. Not, they say, to shock, but to educate people.
This film is exactly what television ought to be doing. This film is an example of how the medium can be used to awaken the citizenry and make them more informed and make them more able to really participate. It does that by giving them the urgency. It does that by giving them the picture. So any effort to stop it is censorship of the worst kind, and should be opposed by, and I think is being opposed by, the overwhelming majority of people who want to see a factual presentation in dramatic form about nuclear war, and that's what this film is.
Some call it propaganda.
And again, I think they're totally off the mark to call it propaganda. I would like those people who call it propaganda to show me what's inaccurate factually in this presentation.
The fact that so many people are taking up political positions over the film before even seeing it is being likened here to the polarising of attitudes during the Cold War of the 1950s.
There's a lot of prejudging, which I find rather shocking, that people have either praised or condemned this film without having seen it. This is a very peculiar state of affairs, and whether it's praise or blame, I am bound to suspect it.
Anytime they want to take us up, they can take us up.
All the way.
The furore and the controversy guarantees public interest. It has also brought problems. Faced with intense political lobbying, ABC have watered down the film. The £4.5 million project was to have run 4 hours. Now it will run only 2. The political drama which led to the nuclear war has been taken out. So have references to Pershing missiles due in Europe next week. Now the film concentrates on the effects of the war. It no longer explains why or how the war started. Another extraordinary effect of the film is that ABC has had great difficulty selling advertising space, despite predictions of an enormous viewing figure of 60 million people. After the rows before transmission will come the arguments over the long-term effects on public opinion after transmission.
And Ground Zero is afraid that people will come away with a feeling of shock.
Anti-nuclear groups hope the film will mobilize anti-missile votes.
And what we're recommending is that people watch it in groups and then afterwards hold a discussion about, what they've seen.
While people are likely to be shocked by the day after, particularly children or teenagers, the effect on public opinion about missile deployment is uncertain. Even anti-missile protesters say the film may not change views dramatically.
There can be, over time, tremendous political fallout, but I don't think you'll see it in terms of any short-term deployment, certainly of the missiles this fall, or a particular vote on Congress the very next time something comes up. I think it's a longer-term kind of a seed that is going to be planted that could, over time, bloom.
The experience in Lawrence backs that view. Opinions among the 3,000 people who've seen the film have not been changed, they have been reinforced. Dolph Simons, who owns Lawrence's newspaper, told me the only difference is that voices are louder now.
I think this has brought out some protests that wouldn't have been brought out if it hadn't been produced. I think it has made some people more conscious of the fact that we must not throw away all our arms until we have some assurance that our potential enemy will do likewise.
The nuclear controversy will not end with the day after. Next year will come a new novel and a second film. Both will underline once more the horrific effects of a nuclear war on the American people. Nick Gowing, ITN, Lawrence in Kansas.
It's thought that 60 million people may have watched the film, many of them in groups like this to help absorb the impact. The film does not show a single politician, nor why nuclear war has broken out, nor which side fired first. It concentrates solely on the effects nuclear war will have on ordinary people, and it contains some of the most vivid footage ever to be seen on American television. The film has been criticized by right-wing groups as being a free commercial for the nuclear freeze movement, and that argument has been strengthened by the fact that several such groups, in the wake of the publicity surrounding the film, have taken out television advertisements to make their case.
We don't have to stand idly by while the politicians and bureaucrats make seemingly rational plans and policies, which, if ever carried out, will deny our children a future.
Please join millions of moms in sharing information about the prevention of nuclear war.
The threat of a nuclear war is growing day by day. Take the pressure off before it's too late.
The film could cut both ways. Supporters of a strong defense policy say the film helps their argument that only with such a policy could the catastrophe shown in the film be avoided. John Suchet, News at 10 in Washington.
It's been described as a national event. Certainly no television film in recent memory had generated quite so much interest or concern. Despite the warnings, an audience estimated at 70 million viewed the film, which took 3 years to complete at a cost of over £4 million. Psychologists advise that to alleviate any resulting emotional stress, viewers should watch in groups and discuss the program. The film goes out of its way not to apportion blame for the Holocaust resulting when the Midwestern city of Kansas receives a series of direct nuclear hits. Today, the inhabitants of Lawrence reacted to the celluloid destruction of their home.
It was kind of nice to know that I could go back outside and things were still as they were before the movie was filmed. It didn't really go away. And I think that made it different for the people in Lawrence. They knew they could still see that.
Earlier, several of the town's inhabitants held a candlelight vigil, a scene repeated in scores of American cities. Other demonstrators were opposed to the film being broadcast at all. They picketed local television stations. Press reactions were also mixed, with one New York tabloid urging that the Soviets be made to watch the program. In an article published in the New York Times, the Vice President, Mr. George Bush, used the occasion to stress that the Reagan administration was committed to nuclear arms reductions. The television company came under intense political pressure to abandon the project. In fact, the film was due to run to 4 hours, but was edited down to 2 hours and 15 minutes, cutting out some of the more lurid passages.
It no longer matters who's right.
The nuclear freeze movement disagrees with Kissinger. It paid for a series of television commercials to coincide with the film.
Take the pressure off before it's too late. Call 1-800-NUCLEAR.
The film is not nearly as horrific as what would actually happen, as far as we can tell, after this kind of nuclear explosion. That the scenes of destruction, the personal destruction, the total devastation would have been even much greater than was shown on the film. On the other hand, I think the film does remind people that this can happen. It presents it to them in a form that they can identify with the characters, and they can see that person is like me, this situation is like mine.
Dr. James Gordon today led a protest in front of the White House. And although the group was outnumbered by reporters, larger demonstrations are planned for later in the week. Those opposed to the nuclear freeze movement are also airing their views.
Through high technology, we can end the arms race by making offensive missiles useless. It's better to defend lives than to avenge lives.
Unlike the television commercials, the film itself draws no real conclusion, barring the fact that nuclear war is catastrophic. The debate, however, goes on, with every prospect that it will be pursued in next year's US presidential election campaign. Andrew Mandelstam, ITN, Washington.
Reaction today ranged from terrifying and horrific to Mr. Dennis Healey, who said it wasn't bad enough, to others who called it soap opera with a bomb. Today, the Secretary of Defense, Mr. Heseltine, and the leader of CND, Monsignor Kent, had contrasting views about what the film had to say.
Well, the important message is that it's fiction. And my concern is that in the way it presents the fiction, it doesn't give people the impression that the defense policies of deterrence, which have kept the peace, are in danger of breaking down. I found the last few words, really, the key to it all, in which they said, is there anybody there? Is there anyone there? A sense of absolute hopelessness and desolation. And the truth is, of course, that we're all here. And we've been here at peace after decades of nuclear power because everybody knows of the horrendous capability of those nuclear weapons.
The message is that we live in a world of enormous risk and that any small episode of conflict can escalate to that kind of exchange. And that's because we have a policy, particularly in the West, of using nuclear weapons to, as it were, stop conventional attacks. Seems to me that's the main message, and we are living like that all the time.
It's understood the film will now be shown in countries around the world, with the arguments which surround it certain to grow.
Much of the film's action takes place in and around the town of Lawrence in Kansas. It's a real town where the inhabitants have got used to living next to real live missile silos. Perhaps they've even become complacent. But after the film was shown in America, many people reportedly changed their attitude about nuclear weapons. So, did the same thing happen here? From today's results, it seems that our opinions weren't as affected as the Americans. Nearly 2/3 of those who saw the film, according to the survey, felt that the film pulled its punches. 68% thought that the health and welfare of people after the attack would be worse than the film portrayed, whilst 66% felt that the film underplayed the pain and suffering. The interviewees were also given a list of possible scenarios of what could happen in Britain over the next 10 years, including whether they thought a nuclear war was likely. Before the film was shown, 30% thought it was likely, whilst the day after, 4% more people thought it was likely.
After seeing that, it's just so frightening to believe that somebody would actually do it. Maybe somebody somewhere, some nut might. Not saying it may be a general, maybe a terrorist. It may be, I know, some nutty professor somewhere. You know, who knows?
But perhaps the most interesting result concerned unilateralism. Both before and after the film, the same proportion, 30% of people, were in favour of Britain getting rid of nuclear weapons, even if other countries kept theirs. The 65% who were opposed to unilateralism before the film increased by just 1%. Some of the don't-knows obviously came down on the side of keeping our nuclear deterrent.
I've changed my mind about that, yes. I think that seeing the film, I think that it would be best that we hung on to the weapons because, as I said before, other people have got them as well. And if we didn't have them, they'd have more scope to use them on us. Knowing we've got them, then they'd know we was as good as them, sort of thing.
So was the decision by ITV to show the film a good thing? 80% of all those interviewed said yes.
showing the film, it makes people more aware of what might happen to them in the future if the nuclear weapons were used. And it was pretty horrifying for people to see what might happen, but it could have been worse.
I do agree with them. They should have shown it. The nuclear bomb, the radiation, mostly, is a horrific thing. It should never be allowed to happen. But it is also a shame that it would be never shown in a free country such as the Western world. It will never be shown in an Eastern country. If it did, then hopefully it would change their minds and maybe it'd be one step closer to disarmament.
It really made me really think how bad it could be. I thought, well, you know, if not now, my grandchildren, the children in the future, that's the sort of thing it made me think of immediately watching it. There will be no future.